What's up, YouTube friends? It's your certified health and fitness coach, Caroline Jordan, here with special expert guest, Heather Davis from NutriSense, to talk all about why the healthy habits that you have in your life are hurting you. Yes, that's right. If you've been struggling to lose weight or achieve your fitness goals or just feel great when you wake up in the morning, the things that you're doing that you think are helping you might actually be backfiring badly. And this talk is going to open your eyes to things that might allow you to finally lose that stubborn weight, feel great during your workouts, or just wake up feeling amazing and ready to kick butt at life. So stay tuned for the top 3 healthy habits that backfire in you achieving your weight, your fitness, or your lifestyle goals. First, really quick, we've got to introduce our special guest because, I'm all about bringing experts onto this channel that align with our message of movement as medicine, food as medicine, living a positive lifestyle as medicine. And Heather is a very amazing guest, and I'm just so grateful that she's here to share with us today. So Heather is a registered dietitian at NutriSense. She has a master's in nutrition science and specializes in neuroendocrinology. Wow, try to say that twice. That's hard, big word. But neuroendocrinology is all about how your body responds to stress, including how your hormones, diet, and other lifestyle factors influence your metabolic health. She's been working in the field of metabolic science for over 15 years, including nutrition research, clinical nutrition, and health science education. Heather, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi, Caroline. I am so thrilled to be here with you. As you know, I'm a huge fan of yours, and it's been such an honor to have this invite to come and chat with you today. So I'm super excited about our topic. I think it's just such a hot topic, something that I know I talk about with my clients all the time, and I'm sure you encounter this constantly. So let's dig in. I'm so excited.
Now, friends, Heather and I really hit it off because in our work in fitness and nutrition, we see a lot of these common problems, clients doing all the right things and still struggling to achieve their weight loss goals or their fitness goals. And this is why we decided to collaborate and film this video, is to open your eyes to some of the things that you think might be working that are really hurting you. So we kind of boiled it down to the top 3 most common healthy habits that hurt our clients in reaching their fitness or weight goals. So Heather, drum roll.
I have drums in the back here.
Oh, what drums?
Ready for this. Next time.
What is the first thing, the most common? This one is the most common, friends. I bet you can't even guess it. I bet you won't. This will shock you. What's the first one, Heather? That's the most common.
Yes. The most common one, Caroline and I see this. We totally agree on this one, just in terms of how common it is. What I say is the duo of over-exercising and under-eating. They're a duo. They often come together. And I think that a lot of times it stems from this emphasis that we put on the calories in and calories out energy balance equation. We've all heard it before, and we've all been told this is really the backbone of your weight loss success, but that's so not the full story. And so what happens a lot of times is people think, well, if I just restrict what I'm eating, cut my calories, push harder and harder in the gym, or just my workouts in general, I'll lose the weight. But this can backfire big time. And for a lot of people, it can actually lead to more stubborn weight loss plateaus or even weight gain over time. So it's a big one to watch out for.
Undereating and over-exercising. And I think the diet industry, fitness industry kind of sells this belief that you need to be hitting the pavement and getting your 10,000 steps in addition to your HIIT workout, in addition to your yoga class. You need to do all these things in 24 hours in order to lose weight or, look your best or whatever. And it actually doesn't work at all. And so maybe you're sitting there and you're watching us talk about this and you're thinking, well, how do I know if I'm under eating or if I'm over exercising? So definitely stay tuned, because at the end, we will be discussing the common signs that you can look for within your own body and your own life to help you identify if you might be actually working out too much or not eating enough to support you in losing weight, which you might be scratching your head thinking, but I don't, like what Heather said, calories in, calories out. If I eat less and exercise more, shouldn't I be losing weight? Not always the case, right, Heather?
Absolutely. Yeah. And just like you said, Caroline, like stick around, because we're going to be talking about all of these great clues that your body gives you that can hint at whether or not you're heading in the right direction with how much you're exercising, how many calories you're taking in or restricting. And those clues are going to be your compass to guide you. But one thing that this conversation reminds me of, Caroline, do you remember the show The Biggest Loser?
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So the reality show we've all seen, I think so many of us have been familiar with this, where contestants came on and they were restricting calories big time. They were going into these very extreme sort of calorie restriction protocols while pushing super aggressive workouts. Well, what's super interesting about this is they actually studied these cohorts over time, and they found that there were more people gaining their weight back and having slowed metabolic rate as a result of how aggressive they were in their initial effort to lose weight. So that was a really hard lesson to learn, but it's something now that we have more research on, and it's been more publicized, more talked about, but it's a big concern, right? Like if you're starting out and you're like, I'm going to restrict to just bare minimum of intake, and you're pushing your body, you may get a rude awakening with your metabolic rate dropping over time, and not to mention some other health concerns we'll talk about. But that was a really interesting thing that we did see with The Biggest Loser.
I'm not surprised. And on this channel, we talk about, it doesn't need to be extreme to be successful. And in fact, sometimes staying moderate in your approach towards healthy eating and exercise and just consistent with healthy habits is much better than doing extremes, because extremes tend to backfire. And, finding sustainable health hacks that allow you to feel your best is really kind of the best approach. It's boring. It's not sexy. It doesn't sell, but what works. And, there's a reason people live to be 110 and still thrive in their health. And they're not doing anything crazy to achieve that.
Amen. Amen.
Number one, over exercising and under eating. That's a big one. Big one that hurts people in achieving their weight loss or their fitness goal. Number two. What is number two with the real drums?
I gotta go pull them out. So we have for number two, which really does, I think, tie into our point in number one, but to add to that is just unsustainable diets, these quick fixes, things that may not necessarily be aggressive calorie restriction per se, like we were just talking about, but nonetheless, they're unsustainable in some form or fashion. Can you see yourself doing this over time? Can you see yourself doing this approach to eating, to exercise for the long haul? If the answer is no, red flag. And you may think it's healthy, right? We hear a lot of things about cleanses and detoxes and these fast fixes that are going to come in, and they have what we think of as that health halo around them. So many marketing efforts in terms of looking at specific fad diets or even supplements have that health halo effect where they are very seductive. It looks like you're going to get this healthy benefit from them, but you really may not. You really may end up, at best, maybe getting some short-term results, but maybe over time, backsliding a bit, backpedaling, and regaining some of the weight that you lost.
So, and a lot of those extreme diet approaches, they don't allow you to adequately meet your nutrient needs, which enables you to, really hit brick walls because you're not feeling your best because you're cutting out a macronutrient, a micronutrient to follow this protocol or this approach that might not be sustainable at all. So not meeting your nutrient needs is definitely number two, because you're thinking about, okay, if I'm doing, I mean, there's paleo, there's keto, there's vegan, there's all of these kind of extreme approaches that restrict nutrients, right? And there's no one size fits all to healthy eating. It's really about doing something that works for you, that allows you to meet your nutrient needs and feel your best over time, right?
Yes, definitely. I think it's so easy to just miss some of those critical nutrient balance pieces in your diet, especially if you're jumping on board a fad diet. It's so important to touch base with a qualified nutrition professional like a dietitian, someone who can really sit down with you, look at your dietary intake, spot gaps that might be there, because just not just inadequate intake, but excessive intake of nutrients can also cause the same issue. A cool example of that is with iodine. We see too little iodine cause goiter, and you see too much iodine cause goiter. So you can actually see this across the board with so many different nutrients, where too little and too much can both cause a negative metabolic impact. So having the ability to sit down with someone who's really trained in this area, who can help you sort it out, it's so valuable, and it can save you a lot of legwork and guesswork in the long run. And just being able to dial that in. And I think one thing that's really interesting too, like the low carb trend, which in some cases, if you are diabetic or pre-diabetic, there are studies that show spending a bit of time in a lower carb dietary profile might be helpful. However, it's not necessarily an ideal diet for everyone. And one thing that I think people experience when they first start out doing something like a low carb approach is almost like a honeymoon effect, where they cut out all their carbs. But what are they cutting out? They're cutting out the processed sugar, all the added sugars and refined grains and things that probably weren't super healthy to be eating all the time. And the big question is, can you cut some of that stuff and still enjoy carbs and still have a balanced diet? And the answer for a lot of people is yes. So you may not need to take a hatchet to an entire macronutrient like carbs, when you can come in with a fine-tooth comb, a scalpel, and really just sort of see what types and timing of carbs might be a little bit better for your body. So it's all about those details, being able to keep some of the foods that you love, foods that you can continue eating throughout your life, to create that sustainable diet that has good nutrient density, right? We don't want to cut out a bunch of nutrients by eliminating giant groups of foods, but if we can find more nuance and just more customization, I think that's the key. So again, this healthy habit of really just making sure that you're meeting your nutrient needs, that you're not falling for quick fixes.
Quick fixes and fads. Yeah. And this is something that I think, we preach through our work is, dropping the extremes, dropping the all or nothing, the black and white thinking, like I can either have carbs or I can't have carbs. It's either an hour of exercise or no exercise at all. Like, why does it have to look like all or nothing? Can you find a happy medium where, yes, you're able to enjoy carbs in moderation and in the way that it works with your diet and your metabolism and your health? Or, yes, you're able to exercise for 10 minutes multiple times a week, and that allows you to stay moving and stay active. So, I think that when we're talking about health habits that aren't working for people, yes, over-exercise, under-eating, following extreme fad diets that don't allow you to meet your nutrient needs. These are big things that we see often, all the time. But another thing that our clients struggle with is black and white thinking, all or nothing mindset. And that is preventing them from kind of finding those details that allow them to find balance. And remember, the all or nothing mindset and the extremes, that just leads to yo-yoing and binging and feeling crazy about food and fitness. And that's not healthy for your mindset at all. And health is not just what you eat. It's not just what you do with exercise. It's about how you feel about it all and how you relate to it all. So, this was not on our topic of conversation today. I know Heather and I could talk forever, but
I couldn't have said any of this better. You nailed it, Caroline. You nailed it. You nailed it.
Mindset matters. And if your mindset is hurting you in reaching your happy, healthy weight that's sustainable, in finding fitness that feels good and is doable for the rest of your life, then you have to look at how you're relating to food and how you're relating to fitness and how to make it more balanced and doable for your life. So
yeah.
Yes.
You saying that, it reminds me too, one thing that I love in working with the continuous glucose monitor technology is we have an opportunity to have this tool that helps us with that nuance. Something I see all the time is people come in and they've cut out entire groups of foods, or they're being really, really restrictive because they're so worried that something is negatively impacting them or their weight goals, right? Mm-hmm. And we look at their glucose data and we can actually see, we can run experiments with different types and amounts of carbs or other foods. We can run exercise experiments and fueling experiments to see, you know what, maybe you don't need to restrict as much. Look, your glucose is looking great, or like, let's play with that. So it's really cool to see people going from a mentality of extreme restriction to being able to loosen those reins and still see results. And in many cases, actually have those results sped up. They gain more momentum because they are working with their body. They're working with their hormones, supporting healthy hormone balance. And then this leads us into talking about stress, right? So how you're stressing out about all sorts of things, how your lifestyle is impacting your stress response in your body can have a big effect on your hormones and your weight.
Right. And that actually leads us to health hack number 3 that is not working for you. And that is what, Heather?
Stress overload. And I think a lot of people, when they hear the word stress, they think, okay, this is about like my relationship stress or social, emotional stressors. Work is stressful, right? All these things we automatically think about, but we often don't really consider the other equally important things that our body thinks of as stress. So everything we've been talking about so far is actually a stress, like over exercising and under eating. That's a stressor. Not meeting your nutrient needs. That's a stressor. Not getting good sleep, stressor. So these are all things your body is tallying up every day. And it's considering this as part of what I call the stress bucket that you have, that you fill up every day with stuff. And if it starts to overflow, then there are some serious metabolic consequences to that. When our stress load rises too high, we end up having changes in things like cortisol, which is our main stress hormone, but also other hormones like thyroid hormone, and even some sex hormone changes. So all of these will influence your weight. They'll influence a lot of other things too. Energy levels, mood, sleep quality itself can be impacted by that in a vicious cycle. So it's really interesting to just consider the ways in which your healthy habits might be adding stress overall. You may think they're reducing stress, but they might be adding more stress.
Big time. And I always say, if you're stressed about it, you're doing it wrong. If exercise is stressing you out, something's got to change. If your diet is stressing you out, it's making you a crazy basket case and you feel like you can't be fully present in your life, that it doesn't have to be that way. And it's definitely not going to help you if it's making you feel crazy. Because remember, like we talked about earlier, it's not just about what you eat and how you exercise, but it's about how you feel about it all. And Stress overload. Yes, we all need stress. We need stress in a healthy way to get stronger. We need stress in our lives to challenge us to be our best, but it's just such a fine balance. And
the devil is in the dose.
Right, exactly. And now, we've talked about the top 3 healthy habits that are all so interconnected: over exercising, under eating, not meeting nutrient needs, having stress overload in your life. Now we can try to figure out how to help you identify, how do you know? Are you too stressed out? What are the key symptoms to look for in your own body, in your own life, that might be red flags, as Heather said, that can clue you into, you might want to reconsider how you're approaching your diet, how you're approaching your movement, and how to do that. How do you go from exercising too much and eating too little? How do you change it without it backfiring? That's probably something people really struggle with. I know if you're watching this right now, comment below if that's something you're scared of, all of a sudden eating more calories and exercising less and gaining weight. But what are the signs, Heather, that people can look for to help them identify key symptoms in their own body that might indicate that their current diet or current exercise approach is backfiring?
Yes. So this is my favorite topic, because I think people start to imagine that everything can be very hard to figure out, when in fact your body is giving you clues constantly. It's really there telling you every single day what is or isn't working. We just have to know, how to listen to it, but also how to set up strategic experiments to get that information and to tease that out from our bodies. So that's something I spend a lot of time working with people on, is just setting up those experiments, reading those symptoms and tracking it over time, and you'll get your answers. So the main symptoms that we can really tie directly to the health of your stress response system, which is also known as your neuroendocrine system. This system governs your weight. It governs so much about your body, but it does govern your weight. So the health of your neuroendocrine system or stress response system is so important. And if you're feeling fatigued, especially if you're chronically fatigued, okay, that is a big alarm that your stress response system is maxed out. The other symptom that's really common is if you struggle with digestive issues. So the digestive system in your gut is so tied to your stress response system as a whole. We talk about the gut-brain axis now, right? Where we can see so much about mood and cognition being affected by gut health. And it's a two-way street. So sometimes if we're having trouble with just digesting foods, we're bloated, we're having issues with all that stuff, it can be a sign that there's something we're not tolerating in our lives. It could just be we need to tweak some things about our diet, or we need to change some things about our exercise routine, our sleep routine, but that's a good sign to watch out for. Another one is our mood. So if you struggle with mood swings, or especially if you notice that there is like almost a pattern in your day, we think about hangry, right? Being like anxious and angry, and it's connected to food and what you're doing around food. Sometimes that can be a sign that your body is overloaded. Depression, anxiety patterns. These can be connected to a lot of things, but they are a very common sign of stress overload. So paying attention to your mood, paying attention to the patterns in your mood throughout the day. And then another one is your sleep. This is a two-way street, right? If you're not getting enough sleep, that itself is a stressor. However, the stress load in your life can cause poor sleep. So it can make insomnia worse, trouble falling asleep, trouble staying asleep, waking up, can't get back to sleep, that kind of stuff. It can be made worse by the higher stress levels in your life. So for example, I see very often in the people I work with who happen to be over-exercising and under-eating, they struggle with sleep. Sometimes that can be a part of blood sugar imbalances that come from that over-exercising, under-eating pattern. But that's a big symptom to watch for. So if you're someone who deals with chronic sleep issues, put an ear to that and really consider that there may be some stress related concerns going on worth investigating. And I would say probably another really good one to watch for, we think about hormonal changes as being so tied to your stress and your stress response system. And we can, as women, often, we can track changes in menstrual cycles if we are premenopausal, if we're going through menopause or postmenopausal. We can sometimes even see connections between symptoms like hot flashes, night sweats, and some other key markers like this that can alert us to those hormonal, I call them like little hormonal clues.
Yeah.
So, there are a lot of ways that hormones, without having to run a lab test necessarily, but a lot of ways our body kind of tells us about the state of our hormonal makeup. So
Right.
If we do struggle with menstrual irregularities, or, there are some issues there, especially if you also notice that you've got fatigue or sleep issues, things like that. Now it's really time to start thinking about, what am I doing? Is this overloading? Do I have too much stress?
It's crazy because I know so many of my clients and even my friends, my community, they struggle with this. And it's hard because, you can help clients with making sure that their diet is balanced and nutrient dense so that it's not a stressor on their body. And I can help clients make sure that their fitness program is well-rounded and includes rest days and recovery and strength training and cardio in a way that doesn't stress them out. But what do you do when the client's, following a good diet and they're following a balanced exercise program, but their lifestyle is still stressful? That's
like work stress, or they're really just not sleeping because
or they're
all the time.
Yeah, they're a parent and they have a newborn, and they're doing the best they can, but that's the hard one for me because I never know. It's just difficult. I know I have a client who has 3 children and she works full time, and her youngest has type 1 diabetes. So she's constantly also trying to help her make sure that she's doing okay. And it's stressful. And she feels like she can't reach her health goals not because she's not eating well or because she's not exercising right. She's doing those things balanced, but it's that lifestyle stress.
Yeah, the lifestyle stress that you're describing is a big one. I see this too in so many of the people I work with. One thing that I do find can be really helpful is, first and foremost, you've got to get support. And whether or not that's working with someone like you, Caroline, someone like me, but also having some support system where you can go to someone and say, I'm having these difficulties, and they can give you a degree of feedback on what might be helpful. So for me, for example, right, I'm going to be sharing a lot of different tips for how to make food prep and make all these things around the food stuff, right, easier, simple. How do we make things efficient? How do we align with your schedule so that you're as least overloaded as possible? And there are things there, but beyond that, this may sound crazy, but I really think a lot of us may have trouble asking for help, or may have trouble drawing boundaries and having boundaries in our lives. Like, yes, we need to take care of our family. Like, yes, we need to take care of our loved ones, and we have these priorities and responsibilities. But are there places in our lives where we are saying yes when we should be saying no? Are there places where we can stick up for ourselves a little bit and try to, keep a little bit of protective layer around our own care and taking care of that space? And I know that working with so many people who are working mothers or working fathers, having all this stuff going on, it's hard to actually say no to things or to draw those boundaries, but it's a good reminder, which is why I think it's also important to work with some support system, whether it's a therapist for support, someone like you, someone like me, who can remind you, hey, don't forget about your boundaries. Hey, and having just a voice who's on your side, who's helping you say, look, I know it's hard, but there are little hacks we're going to do to try to make it easier. And also, let's practice drawing boundaries on things. Let's practice saying no sometimes when we might feel guilty, but you know what? Sometimes it's the best thing to do.
Right. Because the reality is, if your health fails, you can't do any of the things that you'd like to do. And so it is a balance and a constant struggle of trying to prioritize yourself first so that you can show up fully for the rest of the things in your life. And, working with someone like Heather to help you kind of figure out little hacks you can do to make food less stressful and easier to eat well. Someone like me who's going to put together a fitness program for you where you just click and go. You don't have to think about it. And it's balanced and it's well programmed so that you see results instead of burnout. Those are things that you can do to help yourself make it easier. But the bottom line is it does come from you wanting to show up for yourself so that you can live a life of health and also show others how to do the exact same thing. So that is a great point. I'm really glad that we went over that. But let's just review really fast, friends. So we talked about the top 3 healthy habits that actually backfire: overexercising, undereating, not meeting nutrient needs, following crazy extremes, and stress overload, when there's too much on your plate that your body just goes, no, I'm going to store all this fat because you're just running like a crazy person all the time. So those are 3 healthy habits that actually hurt you. And I want you to think about, after this conversation, maybe reevaluating what you're doing with your diet, what you're doing with your exercise, what you're doing with your sleep and your lifestyle, so that you can continue to move forward in your fitness and wellness journey and feel your very best. Now, the reason Heather and I know each other is that she works for NutriSense, and NutriSense is continuous glucose monitors. And you've seen me wear them on my arm in some of my videos. And they're open to everyone now, not just diabetics, so that we can better understand our metabolic health. And it partners you with someone like Heather to analyze your glucose data to help you do what she calls experiments, playing around with your nutrition or your exercise to have more steady, stable glucose levels so that you can feel better and achieve optimal well-being. And now, knowledge is power. We have the data now and the data trackers now to give us the knowledge to make more informed decisions when it comes to our exercise and our food, so that we're not hurting our health with healthy habits, so that we're really helping our health with healthy habits. So if you haven't heard of NutriSense before, or you want to try out a continuous glucose monitor so you can better understand how your exercise and your nutrition is actually impacting you in real time, I've left a link in the description box below for you to check out NutriSense. NutriSense partners you with someone like Heather so that you can analyze all of your data and make better choices to achieve better results, which is awesome. So cool that we live now in 2023 where there's things like that.
I know, it's great. Where was this back in the day for me? I wanted some of this.
Right? I know, but we haven't. And we are running short on our time, but I just want to thank Heather so much for coming and sharing all of this knowledge. If this information resonated with you, if you have further questions or you've been struggling with some of these things, leave them in the comments below. It's my hope that Heather will join us again for another video on some of these burning topics. So if you have a question for Heather, leave it below. And if you're a Patreon member, she'll be joining us for one of our live monthly Zoom calls where you'll be able to ask her in real time your questions on fitness and nutrition and glucose monitoring and all of that jazz. So definitely join us on Patreon for our upcoming monthly calls, and you can meet with Heather in real time. She's amazing. If you didn't know, you know. But all of that information is in the description box. And Heather, I just can't thank you enough for joining us today. It's just been such a pleasure. And I hope that you benefited from watching this conversation. And I'm excited to talk to you more in future videos.
Caroline, it's been such a pleasure. It's hard to stop. I feel like we could just go on and on all day, and there's so much fun stuff to talk about. So I'm really excited to connect with your viewers and hear their questions, hear their thoughts. I want to know more about what you all are interested in. And hopefully we can continue all of this group learning together. It's so much fun.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, friends, for joining us. And please comment below if you liked this video, hit the thumbs up button, and we will both see you soon on another amazing video to help you choose health hacks that help you and fuel your fitness and weight loss goals. Thank you, Heather. And thank you, friends. We'll see you soon.